Hello, hello, welcome to Tea with a Druid. Tea with a Druid number 321, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, and my name is Philip Carr-Gomm. Lovely to see you. Well, we can see how the wheel of the year is turning by the fact that the curtains are closed. It's already getting dark outside. The first time this year that I've had to do that. So, and welcome to, I've seen people from Edinburgh and up the road in Barkham and North Yorkshire and Stirlingshire, Nottingham, rainy Glasgow, Boulder County, Colorado, Essex, Wyoming, Bewdley, Northern Ireland, California, Chicago, County Tipperary. Fantastic. Lovely to see you. Pukeru Bay. Kia ora. What a beautiful spot in New Zealand. Gloucester, New Zealand, and more New Zealanders. Fantastic. Great to see you. So, and South Africa, hurrah, and Finland, and East Tennessee. And oh, I could go on. It's fantastic. It's lovely. Do come in. Welcome. It's wonderful to be with you. And as everybody is arriving, just imagine you're coming into this forest clearing and there are friends from all over the world that you're greeting. You're waving at people who are coming in from every direction. And there's a nice fire going in the middle. And you're sitting down and just settling in. And as you settle in, you might like to drop inside just for a moment, just to sort of check in where you're at. You might have had a busy day, you might have had a really quiet day, but just allow yourself to settle for a moment and then see if there's a word that comes up that describes how you're feeling. You might want to take a big, deep breath in, hold for a moment, and then breathe out fully and deeply, just sighing and letting go and tuning in. And then just say how you feel, and bearing in mind that you may feel very differently a few seconds later, but just in the moment, how are you feeling? Are you feeling calm and settled, a little frazzled, tired, sleepy, grumpy, happy? How are you feeling? Recovering, relaxed, very content, breathing, sleepy, achy but happy, content, relieved, deeply blessed, anxious, autumnal, comfortable, needing more quiet than usual, very tired, relaxed and content, integrating, closed off and small. People are speaking different languages: French, inspired, joyful, energetic, recovered here too, happy for soup, tired, achy, exhilarated after a busy day, feeling rather worn and happy. Bureaucratically annoyed, I know that feeling. Energetic, mowing, I can't really, headache, but calm, waking up, surviving, loving my quiet home. Invisible and unappreciated. Possum in the weeds, hermity, dreaming. Weak, tired aches, happy to join the circle, scrumptious, painful recovery. Got to jump on the biscuits. I think that's a reference to Biscuits with Druids, which is another event that occurs straight after Tea with the Druids, if you're a member of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, and you have access to the Druid half. Getting over my very first bout of COVID. God, you managed to survive till now without having it. Well done. Yeah. Grateful. Yes. So, well, good to see. Feel welcome here, and good to see you. And this night's episode is dedicated to two people. I'm going to dedicate tonight's episode to an 102-year-old woman and a house burglar. Both of them have made news this week and brought a smile to my face, and I wanted to share this with you. And both the burglar and the centenarian both show admirable characteristics. So let me read you from the BBC to you. A would-be burglar in Rome was caught after stopping to read a book on Greek mythology in the middle of a theft. The 38-year-old reportedly gained access to a flat in the Italian capital's Prati district via the balcony, but became distracted after picking up a book about Homer's Iliad on a bedside table. The homeowner woke up and confronted the thief, who was engrossed in the book. After being caught off guard, the thief tried to make a quick getaway, but was arrested shortly afterwards. He said he had climbed the building to visit a person he knew. A likely story. I thought I had ended up in a B&B, saw the book and started to read it. Giovanni Nucci, the author of the book that the thief was reading, called The Gods at 6 o'clock, which explains the Iliad from the perspective of the gods, said, "I'd like to find the person caught red-handed and give him the book. I'd like him to be able to finish it. It's a surreal story, but also full of humanity." The author said his personal favorite deity was Hermes, the god of thieves. He is also the god of literature, he said. So it's clear, everything fits. Well, yes, I hope his judge is lenient with him. If I was his judge, I wonder if he could give a sentence of having to complete a degree in Greek mythology and, with some sort of, if you don't complete your degree, you'll go to prison or something. I don't know. And then the other person tonight's episode is dedicated to is Manette Bailey, a 102-year-old woman who's become Britain's oldest skydiver after jumping out of a plane at 7,000 feet. She did it to raise money for 3 different charities, or so she says. I think she actually just did it for the thrill of it, quite honestly. And the BBC says, Mrs. Bailey is no stranger to adventure. To celebrate her 100th birthday, she raced around Silverstone racetrack in a Ferrari at 130 miles an hour. Now, isn't that fantastic? I've set myself a goal. When I have my 100th birthday, I'm going to get in a Ferrari and race around Silverstone. I think that's fantastic. Isn't that fantastic? So now for something serious. I had an email this morning, which brought up a subject that I think it's time to talk about, although it's a difficult subject to talk about. But I think I can share this with you. First of all, though, let me tell you where I was last week, because this connects with the topic. Now let's see if I can do this. Oh, right. Hang on just 1 second. And here we go. Hang on. There we go. And there we go. So I think this is going to take a while. I just wanted to show some photographs to you. I was at a wonderful event called the Medicine Festival, which was a sort of combination of, I suppose, a sort of Burning Man kind of thing. I've never been to Burning Man, but I guess it was like that. But also with reminiscences of Druid camps for many years. For 20 years, the Order of Bards, Hermits and Druids ran 4 camps a year, and they were just fantastic. Our kids went to them, and they were just wild and magnificent and just incredible. And then we handed that on to White Horse camps, which ran the camps for another number of years. Now there are other Druid camps. Anyway, so there's a combination of these. And let me see if I can just share some photos of it, because we were asked as Druids to welcome the indigenous elders that had come from different countries. And so a team of us helped out, and here's some photographs. Let's have a look. There you go. I can see. I wonder if I can get out of the way. Yes, I can. So here was the welcoming ceremony. There was this wonderful goddess figure. You can just see the face, just top right there, and you can see Chris Park playing the bagpipes, Laura playing the bowron, Sarah Bear in the back, just towards the back in that wonderful headdress with the wheat, myself in the corner, and Fleur over in the other side. And this was part of the opening ceremony. And here's a shot from the other side where you can see the figure of the sun. And we then processed, everybody processed, I don't know, 500 people, 1,000 people, something like that, lots of people. We processed over to a stage. This doesn't show you very clearly, but there's an enormous figure of a bird there, where a flame from Hiroshima, from the the perpetual flame at Hiroshima for peace was brought, because the theme of the festival was peace. And there we are sitting on the stage, and you can just see Laura by that light there. She was singing wonderfully. Chris Park with his harp, and then Fleur, and then myself, and then Sarah just off camera there. And we presented ideas of Druidry. There are the two wonderful Druidesses, two of them. I don't have a photo of Laura, unfortunately. Sarah and Fleur. And there's Chris playing the bagpipes, always rouses a group of people. There's Sarah showing her wonderful headgear she was wearing. And there's Fleur doing a bit of a dance. And there's Chris and Fleur doing a workshop later on in the proceedings. So we had a fantastic time, and it was wonderful. And I had been cautious. I went the previous year, and I had been invited in years before that. But I'd always been cautious because it's called the Medicine Festival, and that is based on the concept of plant medicine. And plant medicine has come to mean, as a misnomer, because mushrooms aren't plants, they're fungi. It has come to mean also psychoactive or psychedelic mushrooms and other kinds of psychoactive things, but mainly mushrooms. And this is a topic that I'm now going to talk about, because I received an email this morning. And in the email, this person says, I personally have run into a number of folks that are pretty cavalier about doing therapeutic and heroic doses of various medicines. Heroic doses are terms for high doses, essentially, of various medicines. And again, that's the word meaning psychedelics. I'm one who stresses the need for therapists to be not just trauma-informed, but specifically trained in pre-screening, as well as dealing with difficult or possible re-traumatizing events. And this email absolutely hits the topic on the head. And in the Medicine Festival, I was on a panel with Andy Letcher, who's really involved in the Druid tradition. You can see a great Mount Hemus talk by him at an Order event a number of years ago, and where he received one of our awards for some scholarship that you'll find on the druidry.org website. And he's the author of a wonderful book called Shroom, which is about mushrooms. And there was Rosalind Watts, Dr. Ros Watts, who invited me to work with her with clients coming out of the clinical trial participants coming out of the Imperial College trials for treatment-resistant depression, where psilocybin was administered. And Ros invited me to work on the team, working with them in the integration process after the clinical trials. And we've been working together ever since through that program. And now I help with her program known as the ACER community, or the ACER program. And that's an integration program for people who've had either psychedelic experiences or any kind of experience that they're seeking to integrate into their daily lives. So here Jasmine is saying a very much needed conversation, I think. I've been really into foraging lately, and while it's different, I'm glad our teacher was rather stern on, quotes, medical uses. Exactly. So, and Autumn Rose Miller says the discoveries of psychedelic use under therapeutic supervision are remarkable. Exactly. So this is the point. So on the panel, there was Ros Watts, Andy Letcher, and myself, and we and Anghared Wynne, who works with the animist traditions of these islands, particularly working with the mythology from Wales. And we were discussing this work in the context of Indigenous traditions. And the reason why that was an important discussion is because the current wave of interest in psychedelics has brought with it the most extraordinary benefits, as many of the people on these clinical trials would attest to, and other people too. But it also raises a number of issues that really need talking about, even though they're difficult to talk about. So they're difficult to talk about for a number of reasons, and let me just go into that. They're difficult to talk about for me personally, because for 50, it sounds, I still can't quite believe it when I say this, but for 50 years, every week, virtually, when I was in the UK, I would visit my sister, who had taken LSD when she was 18, and this had triggered a psychotic breakdown, and she had become schizophrenic, and she spent her life in and out of psychiatric hospitals, and I've forgotten the word they used. They used to be called halfway houses, but they're sort of care homes for people who were essentially mentally unwell. And so I have this experience of being with somebody whose life was, I can't say destroyed, because as I was with her when she was dying, she said to me, she was in a very sort of good state in the hospital, and she said to me, I wouldn't have had it any other way. I've had a really good life, which to me was the most kind of extraordinary thing for her to say, because from an outer perspective, from the outside, you would think that this person's life had been miserable. And yet that's how she felt. And that was an incredible relief, really, to me, to hear that. But so I have witnessed personally, firsthand, for 50 years, the results. Now you can argue that her psychosis could have been triggered by something else. There's all sorts of issues about the genesis of schizophrenia, of genetic predisposition, and so on and so on. And so you could say, you know, if she hadn't taken LSD, it would have been a relationship breakup that would have triggered it, or something, or it just might have just happened anyway. Of course, you'll never know. However, we do know that for people who are at any risk of psychosis, then psychedelics can indeed do this and can be harmful. And an email I received a couple of days ago too puts this very succinctly. The problem. Myself, it was just from one of the many psychedelic training programs of emails that I get, because I then, after working with Ross, I then worked with a psychedelic retreat company for a while, leading or helping to facilitate people on retreats with taking mushrooms. Here's the quote from the email. Quote, all you have to do is sit on the couch, take a high dose of mushrooms, and you'll be cured of your treatment-resistant depression or long-standing addiction. This is what many people generally believe about how psychedelic medicine works. But it's a big misunderstanding that sets interested psychedelic users up for disappointment and potential harm. As healers and advocates in the psychedelic community, we have to be aware of the fact that psychedelics, A, aren't for everyone, B, can be very challenging to experience, and C, must be properly navigated to promote healing. To put it simply, psychedelic-assisted medicines can be hugely beneficial, but require a lot of work to see progress. Psychedelics can provide deep insights, but you or your clients will need to do the work to create change. So that puts it in a nutshell, really. And I think one of the problems that's happened is again, 50 years ago, a long time ago now, when there was the rise of flower power and introduction of psychedelics, again, you know, some psychologists, Leary and Richard Alpert, who later became Ram Dass, they found their experiences with LSD so extraordinary, so mind expanding, and induced such mystical states of consciousness, they decided to sort of release it from its academic and research kind of boundaries into the culture, and we had that whole phenomenon. And so and I was involved in that, and my experiences were absolutely beautiful, and I had the most extraordinary spiritual experiences. Only one bad one, which I managed to sort of get through, but otherwise they were extraordinarily beautiful and profound. And you look at a man like Albert Hofmann, who invented LSD or discovered LSD, and you know, who died, I think, when he was 100. I mean, you know, and you see interviews with him online in his 90s, you know, and he was crystal clear and wonderfully mature and sensible, and you know, all the rest of it. And Valerie is saying, my husband works in mental health and has seen both the life-shattering effects like your sister experienced, as well as the wonderful therapeutic effects when used in a clinical setting. Exactly. So in working with the Imperial College clients, you know, it was deeply touching to see the kind of changes that they had been through. In working on the retreats, which were highly supervised and extremely carefully conducted, it was an absolute privilege to see the sorts of transformations and healings that were occurring in people. But a huge amount of work went into that, of preparation sessions prior to people having the experience, and then very carefully developed, you know, ceremonies to set them in a spiritual context, and then a number of what are called integration sessions afterwards, to make sure that people had integrated the experience thereafter. But what happened was, because now we're seeing a resurgence of interest, and because there are so many psychiatric problems that you know, the treatment systems we have are so poor at delivery. I mean, the NHS here in the UK is under tremendous stress. Large amounts of people suffer from depression. The kind of drugs that are available, SSRIs, have all sorts of downsides to them. They work for certain people, but they really don't help other people, and have addiction problems of their own, etc. So these substances, you know, so it's not surprising that people grab onto whatever is offered. And with series like Michael Pollan's Netflix series on how to change your mind, and all the publicity that's been given, it's not surprising that people will want to explore these options for improving their mental health. So that's one whole issue. You have one issue there, which is the issue of the responsible use of this, and how do we do this, and how do we do this in a way where, you know, for instance, big pharma doesn't start trying to, I mean, you will be astonished at what's going on in the world of big pharma, where, because one of the expensive components in all of this is employing psychotherapists to help people integrate, help people prepare, to look after them during these sessions, which last for hours, you know, 8 hours and all the rest of it. That's the expensive component in the thing. Manufacturing a little pill isn't so expensive. So they're trying to develop mobile phone apps that can do the work of the shrinks instead. I mean, all sorts of things that would most of us would find pretty awful, really. So Holly, thank you for your message. I've got to stop reading the quotes. I'm seeing all these interesting quotes coming in, but I'm going to get distracted. I'll lose my thread. I do apologize. So okay, so let me stay with it. I'll read all your comments afterwards. So do keep making them. I'll have a cup of tea afterwards and we'll read them. I just wanted to finish this piece. So you have the medical issue, and so I was involved with the Synthesis Institute training program for practitioners working in these fields. Large amounts of psychotherapists, psychologists are starting to train in the field of how to work with them. States like Oregon in the United States have made the therapeutic use of these substances legal, and so on and so on. So there's gradually, that progress is being made. But sadly, this isn't the only problem or set of challenges that we need to talk about and address. And I just think the more we talk about it, the better. There's also the whole issue of cultural appropriation and of bringing in the experiences of people who've been to South America, the use of certain ceremonial activities and so on that are used, say, for ayahuasca ceremonies, and then importing them into these countries. And of course, what people have pointed out is that psilocybin is actually an indigenous fungi to these lands. And people have, one of the features in Andy Letcher's book, if you read it, it's a fantastically written book, it's great to read. In his book called Shroom, he concludes that Gordon Wasson and the various people who talked about the Druids in ancient times possibly being guardians of the mushrooms because of the mystical experiences you can obtain from them, that, he points out that there's no evidence for that at all so far, that we haven't found any. However, as he says himself, common sense dictates that they probably were aware of them because the ancients were aware of the properties of plants and mushrooms and all these different things. And so on our panel discussion at that wonderful medicine festival, we were talking about how and whether, rather than importing ceremonies and religious symbolism and so on from other lands into psychedelic ceremonies in this country, in Ireland, in Brittany and so on, whether we should be drawing on the mythology, the gods and goddesses, the beneficent spirits of these lands. So that was the topic of our discussion, and I think it's going to go up on YouTube. And if you're interested in this, you can also see a discussion I had with Ros Watts at one of the OBOD summer gatherings, where we talk, it's called something like Druidry, Psychedelics and the Trees. Because Ros Watts has been inspired by studying the Ogham, the tree language, to work with trees as integrative healing beings and symbols that can support people in their integration work. And so my contribution has been to make a series of little films about the eightfold wheel of the year and so on. So so in reply, in this sort of public reply to the email I received today, I would say, which I'll go back to now, I would say, yes, a number of folks are pretty cavalier about doing these doses, and you're right, and that by being cavalier, it reveals their ignorance perhaps in being unaware of the fact, depending on when I say perhaps, I'm definitely in certain instances, I say perhaps because it would depend on the context to some degree, but that they aren't for everyone. And they can be challenging, very challenging, and they need to be properly navigated. And this is why he goes on to say, I am one who stresses the need for therapists to be not just trauma-informed, but specifically trained in pre-screening, because screening can help to identify whether or not you are likely to have a good experience and a healing experience or not. And you have the risk of being re-traumatized by taking these substances if in certain instances. So so I'm being drawn by your comments, which are so interesting. Faye is saying, does integration mean making sure these patients are okay after the psychedelics? Well, yes, but more. What it means really is that often, if you think about it, often people will gain access to different levels of awareness, different aspects of themselves, insights into themselves that may come fully articulated at an intellectual level, or maybe more somatic or emotional and need time. But all of these experiences, and then they will, when they come out of the experience, they will drop back in to their jobs, their relationships, their homes, and may feel quite disoriented and may well need time to help process the experience. And so there are ways so integration is more than just making sure they're okay. It's, if you like, creating a container, a context, a community, a group of people who can support you. You can do it one-to-one integration, we can do group integration. And because to a great extent, these substances help to, or can help to heal some of the sense of disconnection we experience from the natural world. What happens is you get opened up and kind of connected, which is why doing it in a group can be a very powerful experience, because you've had these incredible bonds between people and so on. So Gabriella is saying, not leaving people alone with their newly found and overwhelming thoughts and feelings equals integration. Yes. So Gary says integration could also be called processing. Yeah. So I'm sorry, but your comments are really good. I've just looked at the clock and seen we're at over half past. So I think that's, so I think I wanted to talk about the risks of big pharma and commercialization, the risks of treating this as a panacea when it's not, but also honoring the extraordinary healings that can take place and the profoundly mystical experiences. I mean, one of the greatest studies, I think, the Johns Hopkins University study, and probably other places as well. I mean, there are over 60 university studies going on. Certainly when I was writing a book about insomnia last year, is working with people who have death anxiety, extreme anxiety provoked by the fear of death after they've had a diagnosis of terminal illness. And that, what a tremendous support that can be if you can relieve people of dread of death. Sarah is saying, how can we know if we're at risk? Well, that's where the screening process comes. And too much to go into now. You might find it by Googling around. It depends on your state of health, physical, your genetics, family instances of schizophrenia, and also, if you're on any particular medications, if you have any ongoing health issues yourself, and your history of any potential trauma. So that needs skillful screening. I'm going to stop talking about this because this is a subject that I could talk about for ages. And if you have a look, if you haven't, either on my YouTube channel or the OBOD YouTube channel, you'll see Druid, Psychedelics and the Trees with myself and Dr. Roz Watts. That might be of interest to you. And I'm going to finish with our meditation now because I want to. And that's because that's what we do in Tea with the Druid. We talk a little bit and then we have a meditation. So it almost feels like I've opened up this topic and it's so big and so buzzing and so full. It reminds me of, I just found out this morning that Merlin Sheldrake, Rupert Sheldrake's son, who's written this fantastic book, whose name I've which name I've forgotten. I think it might be just called Mushrooms or something. Fungi, I think. He's made a film with the voiceover of Bjork, which is in 3D, which they've been showing at IMAX cinemas. That looks absolutely fantastic. And now, as I close my eyes, I'm just full of all these pictures of that I saw this morning of extraordinary looking fungi with, all these shapes and patterns and so on. But let's just have a very, very brief meditation in which I'm going to use the time-honored technique of the bards of old of reading a poem. I'm going to read a poem from somebody who I've just noticed is here in the tea with us, Ulla Conrad from Denmark, who I met the other day, and she sent me her lovely book gave me her lovely book of poetry, Fragments of Life, The Inner Beauty. And in this Druidic way of doing things, we change our level of consciousness so we're more receptive and quieter. A poem is spoken. A few moments are allowed to let it settle without our minds jumping in to analyze it or judge it. And then we come out of the meditation and just let it do its magic on its own. So that's what we're going to do. So now we're in this circle together. The fire is really crackling and lively tonight. And we're just allowing ourselves to settle, to become aware of the earth beneath us, the trees around us and the sky above us. We take in a slow, deep breath. Hold for a moment. And then breathe out fully and deeply. One more time. I'm breathing out with a big sigh, settling into our experience of being seated here on the earth. We see the trees around us. We look up into the night sky. The stars are shining. We feel blessed by the sky, blessed by the stars and the moon, blessed by the presence of the trees, seated on this earth, around this fire. We close our inner eyes, and the bard steps forward to read the poem. It is there, the secret, the sacred. It is there in the grass overgrown path, in every leaf of grass, in the horse on the field, and in the butterflies around. It is there in the quietness lingering, between the leaves of the trees, the growing summer vegetation soaked in it. It is there to be breathed in, to be bathed in, to be with, to be in. It is there in the quietness lingering, between the leaves of the trees, the growing summer vegetation soaked in it. It is there to be breathed in, to be bathed in, to be with, to be in. And feeling in love with life, bathing and breathing in joy and life and beauty and peace and calm and oneness. We gently lift up our hands so that we hold the hands of those to the right and left of us. And here, seated in this circle together, we ask that there might be peace on earth. That the stillness and the quiet and the healing that we're experiencing in this circle now gently radiate out across the land. May this circle be blessed. May our lives be blessed. May all life be blessed. Sensing the solidarity in this circle, the love in this circle, you squeeze the hand to each side of you gently, and then gradually lower the palms of your hands to the earth. And together we ask that the earth might be blessed. We then move our hands up to our heart and holding our palms over our heart. We feel blessings and warmth flowing into our heart. As we do this, we become aware of our physical bodies. Becoming aware of our bodies, we become aware of being seated in our room, facing the screen, our awareness of being in the sacred grove, gently fading as we become aware of being seated here, fully present, here and now. So thank you so much. I'll put a link. You can get Ulla's poetry book from her, and I'll give you the link. Gary says, your meditation did its magic. Our corgi is snoring loudly. That's lovely. That's great to know. So now I'm going to go across, or I'm going to stay here, and this grove is going to magically transform into the Druid hearth. Thank you for being here. If you're in the hearth, you might want to stay. Otherwise, have a very good week. Many, many blessings, much love, and see you next week. Okay, bye.